Hey guys, and welcome to today's episode. Today's episode is going to be dedicated to Red from Zendikar Rising. And if you haven't watched all the other portions of Zendikar Rising spoilers, I recommend you do so. Go into those videos. Links are going to be in the description of this particular video. And let's dive right into it. But before I forget, I want to remind you that we want to get into 1,000 subscribers. So if you can like, comment, share this video, or be subscribed yourself, that would be amazing. So if you dive right into it. First of all, we have Thundering Spark Mage. For 3 colors and a red, it's a creature human wizard. When Thundering Spark Mage enters the battlefield, it deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker, where X is the number of creatures in your party. Well, best case scenario, it deals 4. Worst case scenario, it deals 1. In reality, it's always going to be hitting for either 1 or probably 2. It's red. Creatures are cheap enough that they can be played at curve, like 1, 2-drop, and then a 3, and then this. But at 4, there's a lot of better creatures out there. So yeah, I don't think this card is going to see a lot of play. Then we have Shadow Charger. For a colorless and 2 red, it's a giant warrior, so it adds up to the party mechanic. It's a rare. Has kicker for 2, it has trample and haste. And if it was kicked, it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. At the beginning of your end step, return Shadow Charger to its owner's hand unless it has a +1/+1 counter on it. I don't know, I like the fact that it can go back into your hand because it has trample haste. And it kind of gives you a window where if your opponent is stepped out, it can be targeted for like spot removal. You can spend 3 mana next turn and still try to deal 4 damage to the face. It also puts your opponent on alert that they can't attack, even if they don't. This still has trample, so it might trample over some of their opponent's blockers. So it might be in certain scenarios good if you don't pay the kicker, but at the same time you always want to keep a threat on the field. So yeah, this is a maybe. I don't know if it's going to see a lot of play, but maybe with stuff that triggers when creatures enter the battlefield, so that might be good also because you can be doing it every time. So I don't know what the full meta is going to look like, but this card is kind of weird, but it's kind of good if under the right circumstances. Then we have Tuk Rubber Fort. For 2 colorless and a red, it's a wall. It's a defender, it has reach, so that's good. Creature you control have haste. Well, that's kind of good. It is out of common. The fact that it gives every creature haste. And it doesn't have to be, it's not like a colorless and 2 red where it has to be like really, you have to go really heavily into red. This can be just splashed on and you can have really big creatures that just gain haste. Maybe in a Rakdos build or maybe in a Gruul build, this card would see its home at. Then we have Wayward Guy Beast for a red. It's a creature beast, it's a rare, it has trample and haste. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, return a land you control to its owner's hand. It's one of the cards that has been more talked about recently. It's I don't know. Red doesn't play a lot of lands. Some of the cards have landfall, so it doesn't destroy your land. It returns it to your hand, so you can float a red, then play it again, and then float another red. If you had the land enter the previous turn. So it's not that bad. It does have to deal damage. You can attack into it, and if you just kill a creature, it gets blocked, whatever, and it doesn't deal damage. And it does have trample. If it doesn't deal damage, then it just doesn't return the land to your hand. But like I said, red always plays as little lands as possible, and this is not that bad if you really think about it, because most of the creatures are 1-drops anyway, so you're still gonna be doing your 1-drops. Maybe on turn 2 you're just not gonna do 2 land drops. However, you can put another thread into the board if needed. Then we have Fireblade Charger for a red. It's a Goblin Warrior. As long as it's equipped, it has haste. When it dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So it doesn't set a base power. It can be, since it's equipped, or they want this card to be equipped, obviously. It deals that damage equal to its power, to the opponent. So it's not that bad. It's good because if you trade it off with another creature, it still deals that damage to your opponent. Then we have Thundering Rebuke for colorless and a red. It's a sorcery. It's uncommon. It deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker. There has been cards like this, and they always see play. I think this is going to be one of those cards that it does see play. It deals 4 damage. It is to creature or planeswalker, but red needs that to get rid of really big creatures. I don't like the fact that it's a sorcery, but oh well. It's still gonna see a lot of play. It's an uncommon also, so it's gonna see a ton of play. Then we have Sizzling Barrage for a colorless and a red. It's an instant card. It's a common. It deals 4 damage to target creature that blocked this turn. So basically, you deal 1 or 2 damage. It gets blocked, and then you deal 4 damage, just getting rid of that creature altogether. So I like this card. The fact that it's an instant. You're only gonna use it on your turn anyways, but the fact always better that it's at instant speed. Then we have Scavenged Blade for a colorless and a red. When it enters the battlefield, attach it to creature you control. Equipped creature gets +2/+0, and if for equip, it's 2 colorless and a red. It seems that you're getting a lot more of those equipments that equip themselves for free. So this is just one of those. A lot of those type of equipments sometimes see play. I'm not saying this is gonna see play, but I'm just saying, mono red, it just makes it more aggro, man. Like if you have a threat turn 1, turn 2, that threat becomes a 3/3. Maybe sometimes with double strike, or maybe sometimes with like first strike or something. They just get bigger. So the fact that you're not going wide might affect you, but the fact that you're always putting more aggressive threats, I think this is a good card. Then we have Leyline Tyrant for 2 colorless and 2 red. It's a creature dragon. It's a mythic. Flying. You don't lose unspent red mana as steps and phases end. Oh, okay. When Leyline Tyrant dies, you may put any amount of red mana. When you do, you may pay any amount of red mana. When you do, it deals that much damage to any target. Then we have Morag, Fury of Akam. For 4 colorless and 2 red, it's a legendary creature, Minotaur Warrior. It's a mythic. Each creature you control gets +1/+0 for each time its attack. It's this turn. And this is one of the cards that I'm talking about that has landfall. So maybe returning a land to your hand is not that bad. Of course, landfall, you can only put lands at main phases. Always to be able to have a land in your hand to activate this type of abilities is always good. Then whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if it's your main phase, there's an additional combat phase after this phase. At the beginning of your combat, untap all creatures you control. So basically you get 2 attack phases, and red, that's what it does best. Just being aggro, that's what red wants to do. So then we have Shadow Skull Smashing, Shadow Skull, the Hammer Pass. The spell is X and 2 red. It's a sorcery. It deals X damage divided as you choose among up to 2 target creature and or planeswalkers. If X is more than 6, deals twice X damage divided as you choose among them instead. So basically, if it's 6, so you're spending 8 mana, it deals 12 damage, divided amongst the planeswalker and the creature. I don't know. I don't. The land side is just you pay 3 life. If not, it comes in tapped and tapped for red. You know, at late game, obviously you're gonna be playing the spell. Early game, you're gonna be playing the land. However, I don't know. It just seems that you're spending a lot of mana to do some damage, but there's a lot of cheaper spells that, you know, unless your planeswalker is almost getting ready to ultimate, then it's not that good. Then we have Cardigan Intimidator for a colorless and a red. It's a human warrior, so it adds up to your party. Cowards cannot block warriors. You may spend 1 mana, colorless, and choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. This card gets +1/+1 until the end of the turn. This creature becomes a coward until the end of the turn. And then this target creature becomes a coward until the end of turn. And then target warrior gains trample until the end of the turn. So this creature, this effect makes other creature cowards. And it has stats for 3 and 1, which is not that bad actually, because you can spend 2 mana on it. And it gets +1/+1 until the end of the turn, and it can be blocked. So it's not that bad. It's a flexible enough card. It also can gain trample, so I like it. It's not that crazy good, but it's good. Then we move to Magmatic Channeler. For a colorless and a red, it's a human wizard that has, as long as there's more 4 or more instants and or sorcery cards in your graveyard, it gets +3/+1. And then you tap and discard a card, exile top 2 cards of your library, then choose one of them. You may play that card this turn. So basically is for burn. That's what I get from this. It doesn't have haste, which would have been nice, but then the card would have been just so broken. It just gives your opponent a turn to kind of try to deal with it, and if they can't, well, they're gonna get smashed with 4 for 2 CMC. It's not gonna get the +3/+1 until you have 4 or more instants, which means that it probably is gonna be turn 5 when you're gonna have that and play this, and it's gonna go into turn 6 in standard. However, you know, in modern, it's a lot faster. You can get probably 4 or more instant sorceries. And it doesn't say you have to like cast them. You can move them to a graveyard by other effects. Surveil was one of them that could do this, and other type of effects that you can move cards into your graveyard. Drawing and filtering your hand also helps. So drawing and discarding, kind of like filtering your hand, also helps to put those 4 or more instant before turn 2 or 3. And then you can play this card at turn 4. It still is going to be faster, but you can still do it faster. But, best case scenario, you do it at turn 3, attacking turn 4. Worst case scenario, wait until like turn 4, and then you play this turn 4, turn 5, and then you attack turn 5, turn 6, which doesn't make it that good, but the fact that it's just 2 mana, it's worthwhile. Then we have Nahiri's Lethal Forming for X and 2 red. It's a sorcery that it's a rare. And it reads, sacrifice X lands. For each land sacrifices weight, draw a card. You may play X additional lands this turn. Lands you control enter the battlefield tap this turn. So basically there's like I said, there's a lot of landfall effects. This is a sorcery, it doesn't play as an instant, which is fine, because you want to be playing your lands at main phase to have some more synergy with cards that have landfall. But this card is not amazing, but it's good. It might see some play in some type of decks where you kind of float all your mana, then you sacrifice that many lands, you put that many lands, you float that many lands again, and then you get all your landfall triggers plus some available mana as well. Then you have Relic Robber for 2 colorless and a red. This is a Goblin Rogue. It's a rare. It has haste. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player creates a 0/1 colorless Goblin construct artifact creature token with this creature can block, and at the beginning of your end step, this creature deals 1 damage to you. So basically, it's a 2/2 with haste. It's somewhat good because the fact that your opponent creates tokens that also function kind of like Chandra's emblem that deals 1 damage to them, and the fact that you can be making more each turn. Comes at turn 3, it attacks at turn 3 because it does have haste. So yeah, your opponent can, you know, get rid of those creatures some way, somehow, but, you know, until then, it's going to be dealing them damage every upkeep. So, yeah, I think this is going to see some play. Then we have Rolling Vortex for a colorless and a red. It's an enchantment that is a rare. At the beginning of each player upkeeps, it deals 1 damage to them. Whenever a player casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast this spell, it deals 5 damage to that player. And then you pay red, and your opponents can gain life this turn. So this is the ultimate sideboard card. Because it just, you know, for Modern, Pioneer, and for Standard, they get rid of the free spells. They get a damage each turn, triggering a bunch of like Torbrand, and like triggering a lot of that stuff, that non-combat damage. If it's dealt this turn, you know, there's a lot of creatures that gain power if non-combat damage was dealt. So yeah, and the fact that your opponents can gain life if you pay 1 red, that's a really, really good pay only when you need it. If they're about to gain life, you pay it. They're about to gain life again, you pay it again. And, you know, effectively removing that ability from them to gain life, it shuts down at least 2 different decks, man. So this card is going to be one of the MVPs, I think. It's the ultimate card for sideboarding, I guess. Then we have Valakut Awakening and Valakut Stormforge. So for 2 colorless and a red, it's an instant, it's a rare. Put any number of cards from your hand to the bottom of your library, then draw that many cards +1. Yep. You're cycling your cards, basically. It does a draw, so there's a lot of cards that when you draw, it deals damage, it deals, you know, it gets triggering. So I think this card is going to see a lot of play. I think this is one of the cards that's going to see the most play, because if you don't like your hand, you can get rid of all your hand and still draw 1 more card. You get stuck with a bunch of lands at the beginning of your turn. You don't have to mulligan, because at turn 3 you can play this, just get rid of all those lands and still draw 1 more card. You know, it's good. Early game also can become a land. I don't think anybody's gonna play it as a land though. It's too good of a spell to just be playing as a land. Like I said, and also there's cards that gain power, toughness whenever you draw cards, etc., etc. So this card is gonna see a lot of play. Then we have Valakut Exploration for 2 colors and a red. It's an enchantment. It has landfall. Whenever it triggers, you may play a card. Exile the top card of your library. You may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. So you basically exile under it, and you activate landfall. It's on exile, and you get to play an extra card from your hand, basically, because your land drops become effectively as play the next card that you see on the top of your library. It is at 3, but it's a really good card, I think. At the beginning of your end step, if there's any card exile with Valakut Exploration, put them into their owner's graveyard, then deals that much damage to each opponent. So that's even better. If you don't cast it, it deals that much damage. That's basically, I think one of the Chandras did that. So, where you see the card, if you don't like it, you can cast it. If you don't like it, it just deals damage. It deals 2 damage. However, it's just basically gonna do 1 damage. But the fact that you can, it's like kind of like a planeswalker thingy, but it does activate with landfall, so you must be making your land. You must be doing your land drops every turn for it to be good. So maybe in a kind of like a big red type of deck. Then the Wayward Guy Beast, we just saw it as a full art, so we're gonna skip that one. Then we have Akam Warrior and Akam Teeth. It's a miniature warrior that has trample for 5 and a colorless. 5 colorless and a red. It's a miniature warrior that is a uncommon. It has trample. It's a 4/5, and then the other side is just a land. No, I don't think this card is going to see a lot of play. It's just too expensive, maybe in a limited format, but it's just too expensive to see any type of play, even for standard. Then we have Cinderclasm at 1 colorless and a red. It's an instant. It has a kicker for red. It says it deals 1 damage to each creature, and if it was kick, it deals 2 damage to each creature instead. I think this is a good card, man. It just deals, I think there's a card. Yeah, Cry of the Carnarium. It's a colorless into black. This is kind of Cry of the Carnarium, because the other one deals -2/-2. This one deals 2 damage. But however, it kind of like deals. It's kind of like a board wipe in the type. Then we have Goma, Fatah, Vanguard. For a colorless and a red, it's a human warrior, and whenever it attacks, attack a creature an opponent controls with power less or equal to the number of warriors you control can't block this turn. So that itself is a 1. If you have another warrior, it's going to be 2. So they can't block. It's not that good because it's very situational, where you have more warriors. If it's a warrior tribal deck, maybe, because red actually plays creatures that are like 1-drops, 2-drops, 3-drops, and they are warriors. They're really good warriors in the format right now. So it might be good, but if you don't build around it, this card is not going to be that good. The fact that it doesn't have haste, it just gives an opponent an extra turn to get rid of your gimmick where they can't block. So I don't know. It just gives them extra information as well, because they know they're not going to be able to block next turn. So why do they hold back? They might just go ahead and attack you. And, because they know it's coming, either they don't have a way to block it. Then we have Grotec Night Runner. Man, there's a lot of goblins. 2 colorless and a red. It's a goblin rogue. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. So basically, it rewards you for attacking with this card, because it lets you peek at the top of your library. And it does have to deal combat damage, so it can be like, you can't, if it's blocked, it's useless, but it's a good enough for limited format. I don't think Constructed is going to see a lot of play, because it's a 3-drop and doesn't have haste, but, it's a good enough card. It's a 2/3 for power and toughness. So yeah, in limited it's going to be good, because it lets you peek the top of your library. So, well, it's good enough for limited, but it's not going to be good enough for standard. Then we have Kazul's Fury and Kazul's Cliff. It's a double-sided land. It's a uncommon. The spell is an instant, and it's an uncommon. As additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature. This card deals damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to any target. And in the land side, it just comes in tap, and it taps for red. So there's a lot of like, I can't remember the name of kind of like the Firstborn, where you steal one of your opponent's cards or creatures, and then you may sacrifice it to this card. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of like give me that creature and let me sacrifice it. Rakdos does a lot of that already, and this is just a card that may help them keep on doing it. Worst case scenario is a land, and so it might see some play because Rakdos wants to sacrifice creatures. So this caters specifically to that type of deck. So it might see some play just because of that. Because Rakdos always wants ways to sacrifice creatures, claim the Firstborn. And Claim the Firstborn is one of those cards where they take the creature and you know, they sacrifice it to this. So I think Claim the Firstborn is a 1-drop. I mean, it's a 1 CMC spell. So, you know, it might see some synergy and might see some play in Rakdos decks because of the fact that they always want to be sacrificing creatures. Also gives, you know, it deals damage, sacrifice the creature, get the payout for sacrificing the creature. So it's a win-win situation for them. Then we have Rox Light Sorcerer for 3 colorless and a red. It's a human wizard. Whenever you cast an instant, sorcery, or wizard spell, it deals 1 damage to any target. If you want to curve out, you're gonna be playing this at turn 4. So basically, you're gonna start dealing damage at turn 5. I don't know. It seems that it will be better if, you know, if it deals 1 damage for every instant or sorcery there is in your graveyard. It is at turn 4, so you might have, you know, 3 to 4 instant or sorceries in your graveyard. So it will come in ETB, deals 4 damage. It's a 3/3. You know, it gets around some of the removal, some of the board wipes as well that deal 2 damage, or that are -2/-2. However, the fact that it's after the fact that you cast this card and it's on the field, it starts dealing damage. That's a part I don't like, so I'm not gonna go for this card. I don't think it's any good. Then we have Skyclave Geopede for 2 colorless and a red. It's an insect. It has trample and landfall. And whenever a land enters a battlefield under your control, it gets +2/+2 until the end of the turn. It is a 3/1. So in a limited format, this is complete boss. Because it's going to be like, you try to play more land in a limited format because you want to make sure that you're always killing your land drops. So the fact that you can go land and attack for 5, that's really good. You know, but in a constructed format, you know, it is 2 colorless and a red. It's not that bad because it does have trample. Now, if you had trample haste, then that would have been amazing because you put the card, do your land drop, and then you just go ahead and attack for 5. Sometimes finishing the game. But I don't know about that one. I don't think it's gonna see a lot of play, but it might see some play. I don't think so, but we'll see. Then we have Song Mad Treachery and Song Mad Ruins. Song Mad Treachery is for 3 colorless and 2 red. It's a sorcery. Gain control of target creature until the end of the turn. On top of the creature, it gains haste until the end of the turn. And the land side is just a land. There's better cards that do that for a lot less mana. The fact that it's a double-sided land is kind of good. Kind of early game is a land, or late game is a spell. But I don't know. I don't think this card is gonna see a lot of play. Then we have another double land, a double-sided land. It's a Spikefield Hazard and Spikefield Cave. So you pay for the spell side, you pay a red. It's an instant. It's an uncommon. It deals 1 damage to any target. If a permanent dealt damage this way would die this turn, exile instead. So basically, after you attack, you can kind of play this card. In the land side, it's just enter battlefield tap and taps for red. I don't know, man. It's good, but it's not that good. In the format, there's cards that you really don't want to be hitting the graveyard. But I think there's better cards. Maybe not in red. Maybe this is the card that you need to play on red to just exile those Uros and those type of creatures. But I don't know. It means that you have to be doing a lot of damage before. It only does deal 1 damage. There's not a lot of cards that have base power 1 that you actually want to get rid of. That you don't want them to hit the graveyard. That you actually care for them to be exiled. So I don't think this card is any good. Then we have Akam, Hellhound for a red. It's an elemental dog. There you go, more elementals, man. It has landfall. Whenever a land enters a battlefield under your control, it gains +2/+2 until the end of the turn. It has base power and toughness 0. And yeah, it's not that bad actually, because you play a turn 1, turn 2, you make your landfall, and you start swinging for a 2. So it's not that bad. But there's better cards, I think, in mono red. Then we have Ardent Electromancer for 2 colors and a red. It's a human wizard. When it enters the battlefield, add red for each creature in your party. So basically, no, this is not a good card because, you know, best case scenario gives you 4. Worst case scenario just gives you 1. So I don't know. I think you're gonna be just getting 1 mana every time. We have Cleansing Wildfire for a colorless and a red. It's a sorcery. Search target land. Its controller may search the library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle the library, then you draw a card. So this card is good. This card is really good because it gets rid of the problematic lands that your opponent have, and it makes them go for a basic. Not in standard, but in other formats, basics are not. A lot of the decks don't play a lot of basics. So if you get rid of the right land card at the right time, they might just even lose the land and not get anything else. And you also draw a card, so it replaces itself again. So yeah, now this card is super good. I really, really like this card. Then we have Expedition Champion for 2 colors and a red. It's a human warrior. When it gets +2/+0 as long as you control another warrior. So it's very situational. In red you're gonna have other warriors because they are low to the ground, they are low CMC to cast, and so yeah. Best case scenario, it's a +2, +0, and you start hitting at turn 4 for 4 and 3. So it's not that good, but it's not that bad either. And definitely in limited, it's gonna be really good. Then we have Fisher Wizard for a colorless and a red. It's a goblin wizard. When it enters the battlefield, you may discard a card. If you do, you draw a card. Yeah, it's not that bad. It's a 2/1. It doesn't have evasion. Well, you usually want that, but it's a goblin, and goblins have a lot of synergy between them. So the fact that you draw and then you discard, it's not that bad. Or you actually discard and then you draw. So it's not that bad. But then we have Grotag Bug Catcher for a colorless and a red. It's a goblin warrior. It has trample, and when it attacks, it gets +1/+0 until the end of the turn for each creature in your party. It itself is a warrior, so it's always going to be attacking at least for 2. So it's not that bad because it's a 2, always going to be a 2/2, and it's always going to have trample. So it's not that bad. Actually, it's not that bad, and the fact that it's a goblin and it helps you in your party. Maybe in goblin decks this card is going to be like super good. Then we have Inordinate Reach for a colorless and a red. Target creature gets +3/+2 until the end of turn. Scry 1. Basically, it's a combat trick. It's an instant. It's just a combat trick. Some cards in some decks is good. In other decks, if you're not doing combat tricks, it's not good at all. Then it doesn't give it indestructible, so there's a lot of issues with that card, but I like the art though. Molten Blast for 2 colorless and a red is an instant. You choose one. It deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker or destroy target artifact. For 3 mana, it's just too much, but it's a good card because it has flexibility. But for 3 mana, it's just too much. Maybe at 2, it would have been better. At 3, it's just too much. There's a lot of ways to get rid of artifacts a lot cheaper. And there's a lot of ways to just deal 2 damage to a creature or planeswalker. Then we have Royal Eruption for a colorless and a red. It's a sorcery, kick for 5. Well, this better be good. It deals 3 damage to any target. If this spell was kicked, it deals 5 damage instead. There's a lot better cards. It does say any target. I don't know. It's just too much mana. Definitely it's a finisher though. Then we have Scorched Writer for 3 colorless and a red. It has a human warrior. It has a kicker for colorless and a red. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, gains haste until the end of the turn. Yeah, this card is just bad. The stats are not there. Then we have Sneaking Guide for a red. It's a goblin rogue for 2 colorless. It taps and creature with power 2 or less can be blocked this turn. I don't like this card. Maybe if the attacker just makes you win the game, but no, I don't like this card. And then we're last, Spitfire Ligak for 3 colorless and a red. It's a lizard, has landfall. When land enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. But it's at turn 4 and you're only dealing 1 damage, so it's not a good card. Then we have Synchronized Spellcraft for 4 colorless and a red. It's an instant, it deals 4 damage to target creature and X damage to target creature's controller, where X is the number of creatures in your party. Best case scenario deals 4, worst case scenario deals none. So yeah, this is not a good card, and it's also very situational, so I don't think this is a good card. Then we have Teeter Peak Ambusher for a colorless and a red. It's a Goblin Warrior that for 2 colorless and a red, it gets +2/+0 until the end of the turn. It's a 1/3. Again, it's a Goblin, so maybe in a Goblin catered deck, only Goblin tribal deck, it would be good, but I don't think this is gonna be a card for like the mono red decks or anything like that. Then at last we have Tormenting Voice for a colorless and a red. It's a sorcery. As additional cost to cast this spell, you discard a card and then you draw 2 cards. We have had that card a lot of times before in a lot of sets. And then just the showcase promos and the full art promos. So that was it for red. It was a really lengthy video because there's a lot to red. It's just not go to the face anymore. I think there's a lot of flexible cards. Definitely a lot of cards for like big red, not for just regular red, which is like burn or like a fast aggro red deck. So yeah, I kind of like the red portion of it. I always always been kind of like a red player myself. So yeah, I really love this portion of Zendikar Rising. And that was it for today's video. And reminding you that this video was brought to you by Game Inc. and by Dex. Links are in the description of the video. Also for the other portions of Zendikar Rising. Thank you for staying tuned to this video, and I'll see you in the next one.